She had grown used to the kind of silence that comes after midnight, when children sleep and the refrigerator hums like a tired guardian, while a single lamp throws a small circle of light over a scratched table where envelopes wait like small storms, and a cheap calculator with fading numbers sits beside a cup of cold tea. She breathed slowly and counted again and again, as if willpower could multiply coins. Life had bent her but had not broken her. Years earlier, a man promised forever, then packed a bag and vanished, and the echo of the door closing never stopped. Ringing, she gathered the pieces and built a home from faith and routine and stubborn love. Morning after morning, she tied her daughter's hair with careful fingers and reminded her son to read each page as if it mattered. She worked at the diner, where coffee cups never rested, and at the laundromat, where she folded other people's shirts that smelled of soap she could not afford. She learned to turn rice and beans into 3 meals and to tell jokes at the table so her children would not notice her own plate was thin. At night she whispered prayers so soft they sounded like breath. Lord, do you see me? I am trying, I am tired. Please help me keep going. On a Saturday that began like any other, she opened her wallet and found exactly $20. She wrote a list on a torn envelope: milk bread, peanut butter, apples. Apples were small pockets of sunshine for the children, so she promised herself 3. She walked to the corner store under a pale sky, shoes, thin solace tapping against cracked pavement. She moved through the aisles with the precision of a soldier, on rations, weighing each choice like a verdict. She picked the cheapest loaf and the smallest jar and lifted a box of cereal, then set it back because a few extra coins would break the fragile plan. At the register, she slid the bill across and waited for the number to land without punishment. The cashier bagged the items with a practiced rhythm and pushed the sack toward her. She thanked her and walked home, feeling both relief and a threat of fear, because relief never lasted long. Inside the apartment, the morning light rested kindly on the chipped counter. She opened the bag: bread, milk, apples, peanut butter, then paused because her fingers touched paper that did not belong. She unfolded a small square and the breath left her chest. Inside lay another $20 bill and 4 words written in plain, careful letters: God sees you. Her knees weakened and she gripped the table edge as tears rose like a sudden tide. She pressed the note to her heart as if ink could steady a soul and whispered, thank you for seeing me. The door of the bedroom opened and 2 sleepy faces appeared. She wiped her eyes quickly and smiled wider than she had in months, and poured milk and sliced apples and spread peanut butter on warm toast. Laughter returned to a kitchen that had forgotten it. The note remained on the table like a small bright lantern. She slipped it into her wallet, not as cash to be spent, but as a promise to be carried. All that day she felt the promise like a warm hand between her shoulders. She noticed faces on the bus: the woman with a fussy baby, the teenager with ink-stained fingers, the old man counting coins. She prayed simple prayers for strangers and felt the prayers knit strength in her own bones. The next morning she cleaned the apartment with music low and windows open, and she found herself humming. She took the children to a small church she had passed 100 times but never entered. Fear of questions had kept her away. This time, she stepped in and was met with smiles that did not ask for explanations. The choir sang about mercy, and she cried without hiding. After the service, a woman with silver hair pressed a warm hand around hers and said, "We are glad you are here." She went home lighter. In the evening, she began reading a Bible that had gathered dust. She pressed the note inside as a bookmark and underlined words that felt written to her heart. Care for the broken-hearted, feed the little ones, do not be afraid, I am with you. Work remained hard, but hope now traveled with her like a steady companion. She taught her children to pray for people they did not know. They prayed for the person who had slipped kindness into a brown paper bag. Months moved forward. The diner hired a new manager who saw how she steadied chaos during the breakfast rush and gave her more hours with a steadier schedule. She learned to budget with less fear and to save a little in a jar above the fridge. Some nights she opened the wallet, took out the folded square, and breathed those 4 words again. God sees you. One winter afternoon she returned to the same grocery store. Snow dusted the steps and the bell above the door chimed as she entered. She stood in line behind a young mother with a knit hat and a baby in a carrier. The woman counted coins for bread and milk, and her hands shook. Shame bent her shoulders the same way it once bent hers. Memory lit her heart like a lamp. She reached into her wallet and touched the note for courage, then drew out a bill and a small blank card. She wrote slowly, "God sees you," and slipped both into the top of the other woman's bag while the cashier looked away. She left without waiting for thanks and walked into the cold with tears that felt like warm rain. At home she told her children why she had been quiet at dinner. She said, "Kindness is a river. It moves through us. We do not own it, but we are allowed to carry it." Her daughter leaned against her shoulder and asked who wrote the first note. She answered, "I do not know. Maybe an angel, maybe a neighbor, maybe a tired cashier, maybe a stranger who listens to God." Her son asked, "Will we always be seen?" She kissed the top of his head and said, "Yes, we will." Years unfolded like pages turning. She found work at a school cafeteria where the air smelled of soup and cinnamon and where she could be home by evening. She learned the names of students who came through the line with hungry eyes and always made sure the shy ones received an extra fruit. She kept the note in her wallet and sometimes in her pocket when days felt heavy. She formed friendships at churchwomen who brought soup when the flu marched through her apartment and who prayed for each other on Thursday nights. She learned to receive help without shame and to give help without fanfare. Her daughter grew into a calm, thoughtful young woman who studied hard and asked good questions. Her son loved building things from scrap wood and believed every broken object could be mended with patience and string. They learned to spot the quiet sadness in other people and to answer it with kindness. On the anniversary of the day she found the note, she took out 3 apples, polished them until they shone, and told the story at the table from the beginning. They listened as if hearing a legend, and then her son said maybe the note was small because God knew small things fit into the cracks where big things cannot go. She laughed through tears because it was true. Another winter arrived, and with it a storm that closed the school for a week. She and the children baked bread and delivered loaves to neighbors who could not go out. They tucked short messages under the twine that held the wrapping. Every note said the same 4 words: God sees you. Not long after the storm, she was offered a promotion to manage the breakfast shift. It came with a little more pay and a little more dignity. She stood in the storage room one morning and whispered, "Thank you for the doors you open." She understood now that miracles often enter like quiet guests without knocking. Some arrive as folded paper. Some arrive as people who remember your name. Some arrive as strength to finish one more hour. She kept telling the story because memory has power. When you speak a remembered mercy, you light the path for someone walking behind you. Her children grew taller than her and prepared for lives that would carry goodness outward. Her daughter trained as a nurse and learned to hold hope steady for patience when pain rose like a tide. Her son apprenticed with a carpenter who built ramps for elders and repaired porches for free on Saturdays. They carried the sentence of their childhood like a compass: God sees you. She planned small surprises for them on hard weeks, a note in a lunch bag, a chocolate bar split 3 ways, a walk by the river at dusk where the city lights made the water look like scattered stars. She still had nights when worry pounded like a second heartbeat. During those hours she held the note and breathed slowly and remembered the kitchen where laughter returned after a long drought. She remembered the first morning she walked into the church and the song that felt like a doorway. She remembered the hand of the woman with silver hair and the steady kindness of strangers who became family. She remembered the day she slipped a new note into a stranger's bag and how joy ran through her like fire. She promised to keep the river of kindness moving as long as she had breath. And she kept the promise. Now if you are listening, and you carry a hidden ache if you sit at a table under a small lamp counting coins, and questions if you walk aisles balancing prices against hunger, if you wake at 3 and stare at the ceiling and wonder whether heaven has forgotten your address here. This truth spoken with tenderness and courage: you are not invisible, you are not lost, your life is not a mistake. God sees you in the quiet kitchen, and on the crowded bus, and in the waiting room, and on the lonely sidewalk. He sees the good work of your hands, the patience in your voice, the love that keeps moving, even when your feet are tired. Sometimes His care comes as a whisper in your own heart, sometimes as a neighbor at the right door, sometimes as a folded note, tucked where you least expect it. Hold on, take the next step, keep breathing, keep loving, keep hoping. You are seen. Thank you for watching Faith Light Stories. Please share this story with someone who needs a reminder that hope still arrives in ordinary places. Leave a comment so your words can lift another life, and do not forget to like and subscribe, so we can keep telling true and tender stories of faith and light for a world that still longs to hear that God sees you now.